the Jewish predicament.
And didn't your dad leave his harps to Israel?
Oh, does Harpo's harp exist?
Well, my mother thought it would be a wonderful idea when Dad had passed away to take his 2 harps and go to Israel. And I was a judge at the International Harp Festival, which they have every 3 years there. And we donated the 2 harps. One to the Reuben Academy in Tel Aviv and one to the Reuben Academy in Jerusalem, so that children could and students could play on them. At the time in 1965 when we went over there was only 1 harp in Israel. Now don't forget, this is the national musical instrument of Israel. Started with King David, and we thought, well, what the heck? And I thought it was a wonderful thing that Mom chose to do, rather than have them sit in a museum somewhere and lose their, and not have people be able to play. So they had they wound up having 3 harps in Israel for a while. One of them is still being used every day, and harps usually lose their value in their life expectancy, because there's such tremendous tension on the sounding board that it starts to give away a lot. But the one they're still using all the time, and the other one is used on occasion. So thank God, as he would have said, thank God at least my harp's got a little bit of academia. I never did.
Groucho would say my harp's in the Highlands. No, he wouldn't. But so all the people who claim to have Harpo's harp have wasted their money.
Well, these are the last 2 that he had, and I'm sure that there are probably a couple of floating around from the 1970s or 60s or something like that, or excuse me, 40s, you know, because he passed away, believe it or not, in 1964. You realize how long ago that was?
No.
Questions? Second row, right here.
Every Marx Brothers film I've seen, whether on the screen or even on some of the best available DVD collections, the prints are in really terrible condition. Like we've seen bits, frames cut, scratches and things.
Wasn't this one in storage for a long time? Or?
Possibly. I just wonder if there are any efforts to restore these great films.
I think I have a DVD set where they're very good quality. I can't think of the exact name of it, and there are probably several, but they really look better than I've seen in years. But that's I know what you mean.
You, sir. Yeah.
When you were growing up, did your uncles live close to each other, and was there interaction with the families? And they all hung out at Hillcrest, but did you join them and just sit at the table?
The question was, did the brothers all live near each other? Did the families get together? Did Bill join them at the Hillcrest?
Yes, they were within 1.5 miles, 2 miles radius of one another, and I used to go and sit at the Round Table West, as they called it, at Hillcrest. Danny Kaye, Jessel, Burns, Groucho, my dad, Buddy Hackett. I mean, they were all there one time or another, and I had the privilege of, and don't forget now, most of the time, you know, when you're growing up, you've got your own world going. And though I recognized that I was in all these greats, boy, I'd love to revisit that now that at my age, of course, and it's remarkable what you store, even though you're not maybe 100% with it at the time, and you hear funny stories and everything, but it all starts to come back to you later on in life, and you realize how enormously lucky a human being I was to be adopted by Harpo Marx, you know.
Your dad was 50 years older. How old were you when he died?
My dad was just short of 76 years old.
He was 70.
So I was 28, I think, somewhere around there, 27 and all that. But oh, those guys, and they would be at the table and they would tell Joe, Harry Ritz, terribly funny man, and terribly blue, I might add. But Dad felt that, hey, I might as well get an education sooner or later. We were in London, if I may, real fast. Day off from the Palladium. Dad says, let's go to a show or something like that. So fine. So Dad and I walk down the street, and he says, come on, let's go in and see this show. So we go in, we sit down, and I notice that there's a lady that doesn't have a blouse on. She's bare-breasted, and a guy is playing pool at a pool table, and the jokes are flying because of the pool. And I'm going like this, 12 years old, and I'm feeling embarrassed for my dad for having made a very, very poor choice, and I didn't know what to do. And I was more and more like this, and finally Dad, after about 15 or 20 minutes, said, let's get out of here, what do you think? And I said, oh, yeah, let's do. We go out, we walk down the street, and he says, well, what did you think? And I said, well, it's not my cup of tea. And he said, mine neither. They didn't take all their clothes off. It was the windmill, incidentally, that stayed open all through World War II. It's a very famous place over there, the windmill.
We have time for one or two more questions. And with the hat. With the hat. Margaret Dumont stories.
I don't know any. I remember getting a letter from the great Jonathan Miller once, whom I had informed in England that I had discovered Stan Laurel and was going to go have lunch with him. And I was surprised at his letter back, which was, I love that bleak little chicken bone, but Margaret Dumont lives and breathes. And she did, and I didn't ever meet her. Groucho tells on the show that's on the Hollywood Greats, I think is where he tells it.
Amazon.
About, was it?
Amazon.
That they did a Hollywood Palace together, and he said at my last sight of her, she was sitting by the stage, waiting, I guess, to be picked up, and she had a bouquet of roses. In Nebraska, we say bouquet for bouquet. A bouquet of roses, and I think she may have sent them to herself.
It's hard to imagine them without her, but is it true that she didn't get the jokes?
Yeah, pretty much so, and yeah, pretty much so, and she also called them by their real names.
Oh yeah, she said, Julius, what does this mean?
Julie, oh Julie, what does this mean? Oh, gee, what is this? But she really was. And speaking of that Hollywood Palace thing, she had felt, and later in her life, that the Marx Brothers had ruined her career as an actress.
They couldn't cast her as anything else.
That's right. And she was in a few other things, but it is my understanding that about 3 or 4 days after that performance on Hollywood Palace, she passed away.
Yeah, very, very soon after.